What up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. I thought it was Thursday for the better part of the morning, so I'm furious. But we're halfway to the weekend, so yay. I'm Jessie Coffield, and the program that you're watching is called The Sweat. 60 minutes of DFS and betting goodness is coming your way. We'll talk golf, continue our NFL team previews, and have both Steve Garvey and Todd Frazier join the program. Now, speaking of baseball, let's roll with that and kick things off with these guys. DK Live, Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow, and James McCool. Time to chase or fade the following statements about tonight's 8-game slate. So, Steve, the Yankees and Twins have a game total of 10.5. They've easily hit that total the last two nights. So, chase or fade that tonight is the night that this matchup goes under.
Not liking that too much. I mean, I know these teams went out and they had a long game last night, but the Twins are one of the best hitting clubs against lefties, and I just have no faith that J.A. Happ's going to go out and shut this team down. Both their bullpens were depleted last night. They had to use almost everybody on both sides of of this game here. So I just feel like both these teams are going to go out and start whacking the pitching around once again tonight. I would not feel good about taking the under in this game, so I'm going to go with the over once again.
As Steve said in his article, if you didn't catch the game between these teams last night, you missed an absolute classic. Julian, what do you think?
Yeah, Bukes likes the over. Please give me the under. I just like this starting pitching matchup a lot. Odorizzi's been spectacular at home with an ERA under 3. J.A. Happ improves on the road. He's been getting hit harder at Yankee Stadium. We saw this matchup earlier in the season at Yankee Stadium, which is a better park for hitters, and that final score wound up 7-3 Twins. So that one found a way to stay under as well. I just think we're due for some, regression back to the mean here in terms of all the runs we've seen in this series, and it's a pretty big total.
James, Steve wants the over. Julian wants the under. Looks like you're the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I'm going to take the over on this. I think that Julian is kind of insane thinking that he wants the under here.
A lot of people feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Jake Odorizzi is that he did start the season really, really strong. He had a string of really fantastic games, but over the last month, he's been really bad. Over the last month, he has a 5.67 Sierra. He only has a 6.75 K per 9. The Yankees are not a team that I want to go up against when I can't strike people out. And on top of that, when you mentioned the game before that took place in Yankee Stadium, there was a lot of attrition that had happened to the Yankees team in that instance. They weren't at full strength. Now they have pretty much everybody except for Giancarlo Stanton back. So I think this is an entirely different game. Steve is right. J.A. Happ kind of sucks. The Twins are very good at hitting lefties. In fact, they have the highest xWOBA as a team on this slate in this hand and this split at 504. Happ is slightly better on the road, but I mean, in this kind of situation with two bad bullpens that just got beat up into the ground over the last day, I got to take the over.
All right, Indians shortstop Francisco Lindor has hits in 14 of 17 games this month and has multiple hits in 7 of those contests. He's plus 169 to go over 1.5 hits tonight. So Jules, chase or fade that Lindor goes for multiple hits tonight against the Blue Jays?
Yeah, I guess this one I don't necessarily have a strong take on, but at the plus money, I guess it's worth a shot. He's sitting in the leadoff spot as he usually does. Although he's going against Marcus Stroman, he's 5 for 15 against him in his career. Small sample, but there is some success there hitting him. So this is a spot that it's really tough to necessarily have that strong of a take on either side. So given that he's hot, has performed in the matchup, and we get decent-sized plus money on it, I would take a shot at playing it small.
James, do you have a strong take on either side?
No, I don't. I'm mostly with Julian on this one. I think that you probably take the plus money on this and kind of just hope that he comes through and gets those 2 hits. I do respect Stroman right now. He did change up his pitch mix. He's doing a lot better at getting those final strikeout pitches, and he's always had a huge ground ball rate. So it kind of depends on the infield defense. But Lindor's been really, really hot, and I think at plus money, you probably have some decent odds to get there. So I don't mind taking the plus money, but I don't have a huge lean on it.
Steve, do you want to take the plus money here?
Yeah, I don't mind this spot. If you look at Stroman's splits on the road and at home, one of his worst splits is away against lefties. So, I mean, I'm sorry, at home against lefties. So I don't mind this spot at all for Lindor. I mean, the odds aren't great, plus 169. You're not going to get rich off of it. So it's not something that I'm going out and trying to take. But, Yeah, I mean, if you want to throw a couple bucks on there, I have no problem taking that against Stroman, who, like I said, has had his struggles against lefties at home.
All right, James, Noah Syndergaard has the highest strikeout total among starters on tonight's slate at 7.5 against the Padres. He's hit the over on that mark in his last couple of outings, but chaser fade that Syndergaard goes under 7.5 Ks tonight.
This is kind of hard. It's like a fringe bet, but I would take the under. I would definitely chase the under just because 7.5 is a lot of strikeouts. We see guys with elite strikeout potential, guys like Chris Sale or Garrett Cole. They usually end up in the 8.5 strikeout range for their props. So when you have a 7.5 strikeout prop for somebody like Noah Syndergaard, who has control issues and has walk issues that he's experienced this year, it's not something that I'm really trying to go over on. And with that being said, the Padres have been one of the highest strikeout rate teams in the league this year. But right now, they're only striking out at a 45% clip with 2 strikes on the board. So I don't think that I want to chase this. I think that it's a really, really fringe thing, and you're not getting that good of odds on it. I'd much rather just take the under.
7.5 Ks, Steve. Do you think Thor goes under that?
This is just so close. Like James just said, like the Padres are one of the most strikeout-prone teams against righties in the league. They have a 26.2 K percentage, which is the second highest in the league right now. And then we just saw Jason freaking Vargas shut down this entire lineup for about 6 innings last night. Vargas stinks. Like, how do you not hit Vargas? I mean, this is somebody who wrote up, the Padres over total. So, there's that. But I just feel like this should be a spot that Syndergaard should get the over. I mean, we've seen him have struggles, him have issues all season long, but the strikeouts have kind of maintained and they've kind of been there. So if he can get through 6 innings, I think he's able to hit the over in this one.
Julian, Steve seems to think he's going to go over. Where do you sit on this?
Yeah, this is something that if you made me play it, I would take the under, but it's not really something that I have interest in betting on this slate. We saw that Syndergaard did go over in his last 2 starts. Prior to that, he was under this number in 6 consecutive starts and only hit the over in 1 of his last 10. So it just hasn't been going for him in terms of getting the strikeouts, but the Padres do strike out so much that it just has me afraid to actually play the under. So yeah, the guy's pretty much covered everything. Small lean on the under here since the Padres have been a little bit better of late. And Syndergaard's overall game log, this just hasn't been a really strong spot for him.
Alrighty, good stuff, guys. Lots to come on the Sweat, including our fantasy preview of the Chiefs. But for now, here's Emerson Latzia with a very special baseball guest.
Not to brag, but I've hosted like 2 DraftKings shows in a row, which means I have only 1,205 more to go until I catch this man's insane streak of consecutive games played. The living legend and Iron Man, Steve Garvey, joining us now. Good to see you, man. Thanks for being here.
Pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much.
So you spent 14 years in LA, playing in the World Series 4 times, winning it all in 81. How satisfying has it been to see the Dodgers franchise get back to its winning ways over the last few seasons?
Well, it's been very satisfying, but my career, my first opportunity to be here a true Dodger was the spring of 1956. When growing up in Tampa, Florida, my dad, who was a Greyhound bus driver, came home about March 27th, I think, and said, "You want to skip school tomorrow?" And I said, "Wow, let's do it. What are we doing?" And he said, "We're picking up the Brooklyn Dodgers from the Tampa airport, taking the St. Pete to play the Yankees in an exhibition game." And that next day, I got the chance to bat boy and sit next to Roy Campanella and Jackie Robinson and Gil Hodges and Pee Wee Reese and fall in love with the game. And then 12 years later out of Michigan State, I'm drafted in the first round. And as you know, spent almost 15 years with the franchise. So I know it pretty well. I love it. It's been a big part of my life. And to see a resurgence, Guggenheim Partners took over to the point now where it arguably is the #1 minor league program and talent. And with the major league team, obviously having a big lead and looking forward to October. But as you know, it's a minefield in October, and hopefully the third time's the charm.
Yeah, I actually used to work in West Palm Beach. I mean, you miss Dodger Town at all there in Vero?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, it was the best. 1948, Walter O'Malley bought this 400 acres of what was a Navy airfield, and he converted into the iconic Dodger Town. At that time, it was old barracks. Even I stayed in the barracks for a couple of years when I first came up in 69 and 70 in spring training. But that's where all the great Dodgers began their careers. mentioning Wills also, and Ferrillo, and Jim Gilliam, and Snyder, and the guys I mentioned a few minutes ago. But that's the place where all of us went to absorb Dodger history and to be a part of it.
You were a National League MVP in 1974. I mean, in the Dodgers right now, they have another candidate for that award this season in Cody Bellinger. So what do you like the most about this 24-year-old kid who's just tearing it up?
Well, most importantly, he made a stance swing change in the off season. And from that big upright stance and the bat up in the air and then cocking it and taking a long swing, he actually flattened his bat. And a lot like I did, I used to have it at a 45-degree angle. He's got it a little bit less, but he brings it up so that he can get from point A to point B quicker. And that's really the essence of hitting. With 96, 97-mile-an-hour fastballs, with split fingers and cutters, you have to be able to win as long as you can and then release that bat with bat speed, that critical 18 inches, I call it, and not have to take a big, long swing and guesstimate there. So he's done that. He stayed within himself. He stayed very calm at the plate. The next month or so, we'll see if playing every day will take its toll. But I think Dave Roberts and the baseball staff will start to give him a break here or there. He's got a lot of good guys around him. And oh, by the way, the guy hitting behind him is very, very important also. Clayton
Kershaw, who's been a fixture with this team for more than a decade now. I mean, another fantastic season in the works. I feel like everyone is having a great year on this ball club. Kind of has that old school style, though. So who does he remind you of from your playing days? Anyone?
You know, that's a good question. There's an evolution in the Clayton over the last couple of years. He's thrown a lot of innings. He finally had some arm problems. Normally it's been his back. He's a very aggressive pitcher on the mound. He took all those skills and has manufactured a Hall of Fame career to this point. Now he's starting to make adjustments. He's starting to use that cutter and slider down and in and the changeup. He knows the fastball may not be 93, 94, but if he spots it, it can be just as effective. So he's a very, very smart pitcher, very smart man. He's been tremendous for the game. And it'll be interesting to watch how he continues to make adjustments as he gets older.
Alrighty, we've been going through this for the past couple weeks, but a panel of DK Live writers and analysts who will remain anonymous for their own safety went through every NFL team to decide who they think will be the booms and busts of the 2019 NFL season. So let's continue our series of NFL previews and focus on the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, here to give their takes is DK Live's Steve Buchanan, Jeff Ulrich, and Reed Fowler. So, Steve, the panel picks Travis Kelce as the team's fantasy MVP, so not Patrick Mahomes?
So if we had done this segment a week ago, I'd probably agree with the uncertainty of Tyreek Hill. But now that Hill is back in the mix, I think you have to give it to Mahomes. I mean, I think we're all prepared for some regression here. I mean, this is somebody who threw a touchdown on 8.6% of his pass attempts. I mean, that's just absolutely unsustainable to think that somebody's going to be able to do that again. With that in mind, though, Mahomes is still going to be excellent. He's still going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the league. And whether it's going to Kelce, whether it's going to Hill, Mahomes is going to be the guy who's going to be dishing it out. So I'm going to have to give it to Mahomes here. Again, if things were different right now with Hill being suspended, then I think you could make a case for Kelce, but I think it is going to be Mahomes.
Jeff, do you agree with Steve? Do you feel like it has to be Mahomes?
No, I don't. I mean, but here's the thing. We're talking about two players who are going to be either at the top or near the top of their respective positions. Like, they're both basically the number one ranked tight end and quarterback in fantasy football, right? So it's very thin edge as we're talking about, but I would give the edge to Kelce, and here's the reason why. I think there's a bigger gap between Travis Kelce and the next tight end than there is between Patrick Mahomes. Quarterback generally in fantasy, a pretty shallow difference in terms of like scoring between the top quarterback and other quarterbacks. We saw a pretty big gap last year with Mahomes, but I think there's other quarterbacks who are going to close the gap. When you look at the other tight ends behind Travis Kelce, yes, you have that big season from receptions from George Kittle, but is he going to average 15 yards a catch? And he only caught 5 touchdowns. Travis Kelce almost led the league in red zone targets last year, and he caught way more balls per game, 6.4 receptions per game than George Kittle. And then you look at Zach Ertz, who is kind of pedestrian after the catch, far fewer yards after the catch than Travis Kelce. So I think Travis Kelce is the clear number one tight end. I think he's a clear number one at his position than Patrick Mahomes.
Reed, do you agree that even if Mahomes is the number one quarterback, it's not going to be by a landslide, so you kind of have to give this to Travis Kelce?
Yeah, and there's argument that Andrew Luck and some of these other guys, Deshaun Watson, the situation is perfect or close to it. Those guys could rival a little bit with Patrick Mahomes because of that regression. But at the same time, to Jeff's point, I mean, you have to give that to Kelsey because of those red zone targets. They're quality targets. This guy ranked near the top, I think, in top 6 in targets and top 3 in receptions. And so they're quality targets are placed for him. And Patrick Mahomes, when he's in the red zone inside the 20, he's looking for Travis Kelsey. And that's huge for tight ends. So to Jeff's point, you look at that gap, it's George Kittle and Ertz, there's not going to be an argument for them to be tight end 1 right now, right? And granted, if things were to fall into place for those guys, it could be. But I'm with Jeff here. You saw double-digit targets a third of his games over the last 2 seasons. That's crazy.
All right, so for the LVP, or the least valuable fantasy player, the most overvalued, in other words, the panel has running back Carlos Hyde. So, Jeff, do you like this pick?
I kind of do. I know there's some Carlos Hyde buzz, and there's some people trying to build up the fact that maybe Carlos Hyde is a better back than Damian Williams. I don't really think there's a big talent gap between these two personally, at least not big enough that Carlos Hyde is suddenly going to come over and take over the job from Damian Williams. It really comes down to this. Andy Reid likes Damian Williams. He's come out and said Damian Williams is the starter. They signed him. When Andy Reid wants a guy to be the starter, he's going to be the starter. And unless Damian Williams does something really bad or just flops the first couple games, I don't think Carlos Hyde is going to be nearly as big a factor as people think. He's going to get worked in the offense because you'll see him, take breaks, obviously. You'll see Damian Williams take breaks, but I think Damian Williams worked amazing in the pass game. We'll talk about him in the next couple seconds here, but I don't see Carlos Hyde as just coming in unless there's an injury. So I agree with this pick.
I mean, Reed, Williams has never exceeded 256 rushing yards or 50 attempts in a regular season.
Yeah, you have to go back to JC, his junior college days, where you saw over 200 plus carries. And that's the one thing about Damian Williams that you're worried about. And you kind of like this Carlos Hyde signing with Williams' upside. Carlos Hyde isn't going to, he's not going to be the guy who takes over based on talent. Damian Williams is the guy there. We'll talk about it in a little bit. It's Sammy Watkins for me, wide receiver 3. I know he has some upside. People are still drafting him as if he was, as if Hill was still suspended. I think he does. I think there is still some value there because Hill's, that the entire dynamic, we just don't know what that environment's going to be like. If for whatever reason during the season we see Hill and allegations come out, there's still value for a guy like Sammy Watkins, but he hasn't been a top 40 receiver over the last 3 seasons. So I would approach that with some trepidation there.
Steve, Carlos Hyde, LVP, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, these guys have gone over pretty well, but I mean, look, they've signed him for a reason. And I know like Jeff said that, if Andy Reid likes a guy, that's going to be their guy. And that's totally true. But, we haven't seen Williams in this kind of a role. We haven't seen him take the workhorse role even back in college. So I think Hyde has some value on this team. I agree with Reid. I think it's going to be Sammy Watkins. I mean, for one, he has to stay on the field, first and foremost. That's always a problem. And I mean, ever since he had over 1,000 yards with the Bills, a few years ago, he hasn't even come close. Not even close. He's lucky to get half of that in a good season nowadays. So I think there's a lot of buzz on Watkins, being one of the primary targets here. But I'm just not seeing it because, like I said, if he can't even stay on the field to begin with, and even when he is on the field, yeah, he'll pop a good game here or there, but you don't get the consistency from Watkins. And if people are going to be drafting him high just because he's on the team, I'll absolutely do that one.
Jesse, I'll be dead honest. I basically forgot Sammy Watkins was on this team because I don't even consider him in drafts, or I probably would have picked him too. So, yeah, I don't know. That's how little of a factor Sammy Watkins is for me.
Yeah.
That's the best analysis that I think I've heard.
Yeah,
over
thanks
the last 6 months.
for the honesty, Jeff.
Yeah.
I mean, great point. All right, well, finally, the fantasy breakout star for the Chiefs, we've talked about him already, is going to be Damian Williams, according to the panel. So are you on board with that pick, Reed?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just it's sort of who else is there for the positive connotation of that, right? This team is so littered with talent. I think that is going to be the breakout. We saw towards the end of the season, a lot like Dante Pettis, the guy we talked about yesterday, where we saw towards the end of the season really take that position by the horns there. And he, like Jeff mentioned, Andy Reid likes this guy. He also said it will take it day by day, game by game. Coaches do their coach talk, so we'll just we'll wait and see. I will say this, though. Kareem Hunt, extreme talent. In the first 6 weeks, he saw close to 65, 70% of the snap share, and then it increased after week 8 until he got suspended. That always worries me about Andy Reid. He likes his guys a lot. Jeff's right. He likes Damien Williams a lot. If that switches at any point, his ADP is pretty high. So I would kind of use caution with that. Mecole Hardman is someone that I'm looking at as well. So we'll see.
Steve, what do you think?
I think it's DeMarcus Robinson. Yeah, I mean, he's supposed to be taking on the role of Chris Conley from last year. Not that that's a really big role, but, we go back to talking about Sammy Watkins. And if Watkins ends up getting hurt, I think Robinson has a legitimate chance to be a big part of this offense. I mean, he was a fringe wide receiver 3, maybe borderline 4 last year. Like, he's definitely the 3 for this year. And he could easily move up the ranks just by the play by Watkins or the injury. So, I mean, when he was given the ball last year, pretty decent. Caught 32 balls, 334 yards, 5 touchdowns. It's not like he can't make things happen. So I think as the year goes on, I think we'll hear a little bit more buzz about Robinson. But at least for now, I feel like it's pretty minimal. And I think that it's someone that could end up being like a good late round flyer.
Jeff, breakout player of the year. What do you think?
I shout out to DeMarcus Robinson, but I think 100% it's going to be Damien Williams. And I think Damien Williams is the type of player that when the season ends, people are going to look back and be like, why didn't I just take this guy when I had the chance? Because, right now, what is he going between like 10 and 15 running back?
Yeah, like late second round.
I would not be shocked. I would not be shocked if Damien Williams outproduced Le'Veon Bell at all this year. Look, it's not just that he's in this offense either. He's a pretty good player, and this is a sub 4.5 runner. He's a really, really efficient receiver, too, and I think that is the main reason Andy Reid likes him. Caught 23 of 24 targets when he rolled into the starter's role last season. So this is a pretty talented back, and yeah, maybe he's not like quite at the Kareem Hunt level, doesn't have that explosiveness, but again, Carlos Hyde's a player who averaged less than 4 yards per carry over the last 3 seasons. Damien Williams is younger. He hasn't had a lot of traction in his career. I think that's a good thing. I think Damien Williams is going to be big for fantasy this year. And like I said, I think people are going to look back this season and be like, why didn't I take this guy?
You want some good social interaction? Cut off Jeff's take and put it on Twitter. You'll get plenty of reactions.
Okay, I think the guys in the back, yep, they're doing that now. All right, excellent work, gentlemen. MLB Tiers is coming up next after the guys from the Panel B podcast look at some top bets on tonight's slate.
2 more quick spots on teams with plus money. Marlins, Zach Gallen going against Ronaldo Lopez.
You gotta stop.
I am Marlins man, dude.
You gotta stop with the Marlins. Like
they got me last. They were good for me last night, dude. Zach Gallen is good.
Okay.
Ronaldo Lopez is not, and the Marlins are plus 105.
Okay.
Bullpen's not that much different. If you want to handicap that in, you take Marlins first 5 because Gallen's a lot better than Lopez. I am Marlins man. And the second spot would be Jake Odorizzi, plus 104 at home. Yes, it's the Yankees. We know about all that offense. But
coming
Odorizzi,
long game.
6-0 at home. Yeah, the Yankees bullpen obviously less effective after that long game. Odorizzi 6-0 at home with a 2.56 ERA. He beat the Yankees earlier this season, didn't allow a run, only 2 hits in 6 innings.
Don't take that Marlins bet. Jesus.
The Marlins will be very heavily featured on Wednesday's Playbook article, MLB Best Bets.
I'm going to give you some homework. And I'm gonna
I
make
don't
a
do
note.
homework.
We'll see how that affects you in the rankings.
I'm gonna make a note so we can bring it up the next podcast. I want you to go through your bets from this year, all 50,000.
All right, that's already taking too long.
Just relax. I want you to go through all your Marlins bets, and I want you to let us know if you're up and down or down on the season betting the Marlins. I will guarantee you are down. I will bet you a breakfast sandwich that you can eat over your computer.
The breakfast sandwiches were free, and I'm up.
Welcome back to DK Live. Steve Buchanan, Julian Edlow, and James McCool. Now, before we get into tiers, big time mood from Steve betting Julian a free breakfast sandwich about the Marlins. Really putting it all on the line there, Steve.
Yeah, Julian consistently makes these horrible bets on the Marlins. So I figure I'll bet something that is true and dear to his heart, which is a breakfast sandwich. And that would really, get the juices going for him. Because I guarantee you, he is down for the year on making Marlins bets. There's no way he is ahead.
He's alleging that he's up, so I don't know.
That doesn't mean anything.
I love
right.
breakfast sandwiches, and I love the Marlins. So,
especially
great
when
things
the
right
breakfast
there.
sandwiches are free. All right, guys, let's do Tiers of Joy here. Taking a look at the top options from tonight's DK Tiers contest. So, Steve, taking a look at Tier 1, who do you like out of here?
Anybody who has a Braves hat on today is a wonderful choice. But if there's two of them in here, so I'm going to go with Freeman here going up against Brad Keller, because on the road against lefties, he's just been absolutely atrocious. He's got a 352 over, 5.40 xFIP, and Freddie Freeman has been excellent at home. 9 of his 25 home runs have come here. He's got a 392 over, a 255 isolated power. This is a no-brainer for me here. I think Mitch Garver is going to generate a lot of interest here in this tier, but it's definitely Freddie Freeman for me.
Jules, you want to snag a guy in a Braves hat too?
Most likely. I would say Blackman is the guy that I don't like in this tier, I guess, just going left on left against a really good pitcher in Patrick Corbin. And I think the three other guys are really close. You can talk me into any of them, but I did say that I thought that Twins game would stay under, so I guess I'll stay away from Garver here. And I'll say Acuna. I just think he's been, the hotter hitter lately, although I wouldn't argue with playing the opposite hand matchup on Freddie Freeman.
Where are you going on this one, James? Tier 1.
Yeah, I think that Mitch Garver is definitely going to get a lot of interest, and that's because I think he's the best play in this tier. He's got by far the highest expected home run rate right now. He's hitting at a rate that should give him a home run every 10.28% of his plate appearances, which is insane. He's got a 913 x slugging percentage and 571 x WOBA over the last month. He's going up against J.A. Happ, who doesn't miss bats. The total in this game is one of the higher ones on the slate, and like I talked about earlier, I think the over is a really good bet here. So I'm going to back Mitch Garver. I don't mind it being the chalk here. I'll differentiate elsewhere. I just think he's the best play in the slate.
All right, Julian, jump down to Tier 4 for me. Who do you like from this bunch?
Yeah, so just going through Tier 4, I think I'm going to go with Aaron Judge here. Just think he's the safer play in this tier. There's a lot of guys with upside, and I know I just stayed away from a Minnesota Twin because I'm really battling with taking the under in this game, but you can't really deny the upside. Judge is in a really good spot. He's hitting second in the order going against Jake Odorizzi, as the guys mentioned. Although he's been really good at home, he has tailed off of late, so I just think Aaron Judge has the safest floor in this tier, and with so many guys, that's something I put some value in.
James, talk to me about Tier 4.
Yeah, I think it's got to be Aaron Judge. I totally agree with Julian on this. Odorizzi, I have him as the highest expected home run rate given up by pitchers, and I also have him as the guy who's getting hit the hardest by opposing hitters. So, Aaron Judge, he's so good, and he has such a high home run rate, and I think that he's kind of been bad since coming back. Well, not bad, but bad according to Aaron Judge standards since coming back from injury, and I think he's kind of finally turning that around as the weather heats up. So I like Aaron Judge the most here. I think that Edwin Encarnacion is fine as well, but it's going to be Aaron Judge.
Do you want to take Judge 2 here, Steve?
No. I'm going to go with Marte in this spot, and the reason being is because Adam Wainwright is facing a Pirates team that is just loaded with lefties, and that's kind of been his kryptonite this season. What I like about Marte is that he's sandwiched in between a bunch of those lefties. So for me, this feels like this could be an opportunity for a lot of RBIs, some runs home to knock him in once he gets on base. So I think this is actually a really good spot for Marte, even though the splits show this isn't the best spot for him individually. I kind of like what's happening above and below him. Get those RBIs, those home. He's also been hitting very well. He's averaging 11 TK fantasy points over his last 10 games, 4 home runs, 8 RBI, and 3 doubles over that span. So it's not like his bat isn't doing much to begin with either.
All right, James, take us home with your pick from Tier 6.
Yeah, I'm just going to stick with that Yankees-Twins game and go with Aaron Hicks. I've talked before about how I like to try to stack teams in these tiers games because I don't think that enough people do it, and I'm going to take that strategy here. Hicks has been somebody who doesn't really have a lot of power reserves, but has been pretty good as of late. He's had a bit of a power spike, and he does have a 380x WOBA in this hand in this split. I already talked about how Jake Odorizzi is giving up great contact to opposing hitters, so I'm going to go with Aaron Hicks and just kind of hope people don't stack the Yankees like they should.
Steve, who are you going with from Tier 6?
Once Paul Goldschmidt starts going on a hitting streak, you just can't fade the guy, and he's in one of those zones right now where he's just mashing. It doesn't matter who's on the mound right now. You look at his game log. He's just been crushing it right now. He's seen the ball well. The ball is flying off his bat. Getting him at tier 6 feels like an absolute steal for how he's been hitting, so it's definitely going to be Goldschmidt for me.
Julian, you want to dig for gold with Schmitty?
Oh, boy.
No, I will not be digging for gold with Schmitty. Bukes can dig alone, and we'll see what he finds.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Ozzie Albies here, who the Braves are really consistent. They put out like the same lineup every day, but with Dansby Swanson scratched, Ozzie Albies is now hitting second for Atlanta. And like we talked about in Tier 1, a couple of really good Braves there. And like James was talking about, not enough people stack in tiers, and a lot of people will be stacking the Yankees, like it sounds like James will be, which is a fine strategy. That could obviously pay off, but it'll just make a Braves stack, a little less common. So I think getting Albies there, batting higher in the order in a really good matchup, could be a little bit contrarian, but there's some upside there.
Alrighty, good stuff, gang. PGA is coming up after the Pat Mayo Experience takes a look at the Colts offense in 2019.
The one thing about the Colts offense as it pertains to T.Y. Hilton, I don't think like Eric Ebron ends up with like 39 touchdowns again.
No.
But
Doyle steps back in.
Ebron's there. They brought in fifth tight end Devin Funchess to do things.
Is a better tight end than receiver, probably.
Oh, well, he's shaped like a tight end.
He was a tight end in college.
So, I mean, you throw Mo Ali Cox on the field, you put your four tight end
I forgot about Mo Ali Cox.
Mo Ali Cox. He'll be good for like 8 touchdowns, too. Like, Luck is becoming very Breeze-esque in the way that he just distributes touchdowns around to everyone.
Yeah.
And you bring in Perry Campbell. He comes over from France to steal our American touchdown. They draft him. He's fine.
Sorry, I hadn't heard that one yet.
You don't like Perry? Instead of like, how Joe Horn used to find the
I
cell
don't
phone.
usually get the French thing because you usually reserve that for the golf show. There's not too many, aside from Gélin Richard.
Gélin Rocket Richard.
Yeah, no, that's a concern.
And then Kane ends up coming back too, and people are already kind of like, everything that we thought like, man, they had like Dontrell Inman and Ryan Grant, and these were like the bums they were running at wide receiver too.
Yeah.
Like if they have a viable someone else on the other side of the field to throw to, it just might hurt the overall like ceiling that Hilton can get to. Maybe his efficiency becomes better, and maybe he reaches it anyway. But I just don't know if the volume week to week to week to week may necessarily be there like it kind of was last year.
Sure, but I think one thing to consider too is Los Angeles was notoriously slow in how they operated their offense. We're on the exact opposite of the spectrum. The Colts were the fastest paced offense in the NFL.
Yeah, but that flipped a lot in the second half of the season when they got better.
Fair.
A lot of it was when they were down by a bunch in the first half of the season.
True, but they weren't
a slow team.
They were still top 10 in the league.
But they were
ahead by 7 points.
But they were running so many plays
That's fair.
the first 10 weeks of the year. And
That's
then
fair.
all of a sudden when they made their playoff run, they started running. When Marlon Mack came back, it did shift their offense around.
Sure. I still just think I would rather have Hilton than Allen just because maybe it's honestly desensitization, but I'm just kind of bored by the concept of Keenan Allen at this point. I'd rather have the upside of T.Y. Hilton.
It's that bad chin strap beard, isn't it?
It's not great. It's really not great.
You talking about him or you?
Well, it's not really a chin strap.
I suppose that's true.
Although I guess if it doesn't connect, which it doesn't, it is a chin strap. So
there you go. So Tim, you like T.Y. Hilton more. Would that mean you would draft him like in that Antonio Brown, Tyreek Hill range, or even higher than that?
No, right there at that range.
Are you in on Antonio Brown? I feel like he could lead the league in targets.
I mean, it's just Antonio Brown, and
yeah, but he's not good without Ben. I heard that from Ben.
This is a real lazy take, but this is honestly the best I got. Until he doesn't do it, he's Antonio Brown. That's all I really got to say.
Yeah, Tim, you like older players now. He's an older player, so I assume you're in.
Yeah, I think you've got him rated fine. I think 18th, whatever. Maybe a touch higher, maybe a touch lower. I don't know. I think 18th is fine. I think middle of the second round is fair for him.
Our golf gurus, DK Live's Jeff Ulrich and Reed Fowler, are here to play a little game of PGA pin placement, basically predicting the finishing position of the following golfers at this weekend's WGC FedEx St. Jude's Invitational. So, Reed, let's start with Jon Rahm. I mean, this guy established his career best finish in the Open Championship, coming in pretty hot.
Yeah, he's playing fantastic. He played fantastic Thursday, Friday. He had the lead on Thursday, and we just saw him falter a little bit. Couldn't necessarily get those wedges and those irons close enough, and he just really missed some spots. I know you were watching him intently; you had him on your team, but look, I mean, John Rahm can win on any surface, in any format, in any place. He's that good. We know his top 5s and his top 10s, so I got him here for a top 5. I think he's really going to come in with good form, even though he played all 4 days. You kind of saw those that weekend where he didn't do much, but he kind of stuck around. Like everyone didn't do that well, but he stuck around towards the weekend. Even though he's making that trip late on Sunday, I still like him for a top 5 finish here.
Jeff went T3, T2 win in his previous 3 starts.
Yeah, it's definitely, look, the form of John Rahm and just the level of play that he's been at over the last month, there's no holes to pick in that. The thing is, he was over in Europe playing in Spain, and then he played the Irish Open and had that big comeback win. Everything was leading up to the Open Championship for him, so he's been playing over there. He hasn't been in the U.S. for a while. I just feel like this is a pretty big letdown spot, personally. Didn't get it done at the Open. Got to be a little bit disappointed. Already picked up a win at the Irish Open. Not necessarily his best surface or course necessarily coming up either. Bermuda. He's had okay results on Bermuda. I think it's a letdown spot. I'm going to put him down for something like a T20, which for him would be like a big letdown considering the form he's been in. He's been like top 10ing every start. But I just feel like this is probably the week where he might slow down a bit, just regress a little bit back to the norm because he's been so hot. It makes sense because, like I said, building up to the Open, that's over. Not really up for this week is, I think, what's going to happen.
Jeff, what about Tommy Fleetwood? I mean, he has 9 top 20s in 15 career starts in the WGCs, but this is his first appearance at TPC Southwind.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more bullish on Tommy. I know he's in contention last week, and you can make the same argument for him, but this is a player who's been sort of consistently going up and just still searching for that one win in 2019. He almost got it last week, but didn't quite get there. A little bit more rested than John Rahm, too, coming in. So I like that. I think Fleetwood is the type of player who is going to be really hungry for a win coming in. He's just hitting every green in regulation, it seemed like, there the last couple rounds. So we know the tee to green game is in good form. That's what you need at TPC Southwind. You need to hit all of these small greens. So you like the form coming in. You do worry a little bit about just being in contention overseas and then having to come over and play again. But I'm more bullish on him. I'm going to say T5 for Tommy Fleetwood.
Reed, how do you feel about Fleetwood?
Yeah, me and Jeff are sort of opposite with these two guys. I got him the same way he has Rahm. I feel like how we're viewing Rory right now in this letdown spot, a very emotional 2 days for Rory, I think is really going to happen to Tommy Fleetwood. And for much of the same points that Jeff made, I mean, Tommy's played 4 of the last 6 weeks. He played a lot over in Europe before the Open Championship, and he's always there. He's always there in these majors, and he's always contending. And if you look at his follow-up finishes after some of these majors, they're not terrible, but they're not the best. This is interesting because it's a WGC, it's a no-cut event, so we get to see these guys for 4 days. Birdie or Better's game doesn't come in that great over the last 24 rounds on the PGA Tour. So that scares me a little bit. Ball striking is there. Jeff mentioned it. This guy hits the ball extremely well. He's going to win at some point. He's too good not to win. I just don't think it's here. I got him for a 25th place.
Talk to me about Hideki. Reed missed his 2nd consecutive cut at the Open.
Yeah, the bot. I really like him this week. I think a lot of people do. He's in my projected ownership. He's coming in the highest in this tournament, around 22, 23%. And rightfully so. I mean, this guy has not missed a cut after last week in like 26 straight events. He hasn't not gained strokes through his approach and his irons for 30 tournaments, whatever it may be. And he comes in number 1 in birdies or better gained and number 1 in opportunities gained. And so he's just so good with his irons and ball striking. That's what you need at this course. Jeff mentioned it. The birdies are there. He's getting birdies. And so, again, he's a guy that doesn't win. He hasn't won since 2017. That's going to make a lot of guys get off of Hideki. But, I mean, top 3, top 5, I got him right around there if it's not for one of the guys that I'm going to talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, Jeff, prior to missing the cut at the Open, top 25s in his previous 6 starts.
Yeah, it's not so much that I don't like this setup for Hideki or anything like that. I just feel like the upside with some of these players around him is a little bit better. So, you can go cheaper to better putters like Jason Day or Patrick Reed, who are striking it, quite frankly, the ball striking just as good as Hideki. And I think that's really where the flaw comes. I think if he's going to be really high owned, and he is projecting to be one of the highest owned players on the slate, I think you can get off him here. And it's not that hard because, again, you're going to have to make birdies in an elite field like this. You're really going to have a good week putting. Hideki just does not do that. Yeah, he's really consistent, but you can't win a big GPP in a WGC with consistent and like T12. I think Hideki is more likely to finish in like the T10, T12 range than he is like second or first. So that's where I got him pegged. Again, not a bad play or anything, but I do think that the players underneath him better value with similar, better upside.
Yeah, Jeff, your whiteboard is the Fade Reed Wednesday there. I see that behind you. But
it's Fade Fowler Tuesday, and then it's Fade Reed Wednesday. So we've got
okay.
3 days to work on, and then we're good.
Well, why don't you, with that being said, take us home with Reed's boy, Tony Finau.
Yeah, Finau's interesting. I mean, it's not really his best surface for putting on either, and I think you can make a lot of the similar arguments that you made for Hideki, that I just made for Hideki against Finau. His birdie rate in the WGC is really tempting, and he is cheaper in price than Hideki, which I like. I actually like him as a DraftKings play better than Hideki. He's going to be lower owned. He's got similar birdie rate. He's coming off he's been playing better too over his last 2 tournaments, which is really good to see, right? The argument is, again, his upside just feels limited because he's probably not going to putt well enough to win this event, which is maybe a little bit harsh, but it's also probably true. So, a guy like Webb Simpson might actually have a little bit better upside, even though his birdie rate as a whole might be lesser than Finau's. So something to think about. I'm not off him at all. I'm going to put him down for a similar finishing position as Hideki, though. I'll say somewhere between like T8 and T12.
Reed, he's notched top 10s in 5 of his last 8 starts.
Yeah, play Tony Finau. I mean, come on. This is an event that we just talked about it, right? With like Tommy Fleetwood. His ball striking, look, at the Open Championship, he was top 15 in ball striking. He backdoored to a top 3. And now he's got the most strokes gained at the Open. I mean, he's like over the last 4 or 5 years. So this guy is playing extremely well in these difficult events. And this is what I want to see coming into a WGC in the field where you need to be playing at your best. And a no-cut event is something that where I really like Tony because he's performed well at CIMBs. He's performed well at Hero Challenges. I mean, this is what you want to see from Tony. I agree with Jeff. His putting is atrocious, especially on Bermuda, but he switched to the claw grip, and for some reason, it's working for Tony. We know that if you are switching to that type of grip, then your putting is really bad, but he's found something with it. He made a lot more putts last week, and so I got him for a 4th place.
Oh, wow. Okay. Slate Approved pick time. Who's your lock for this weekend, Reed? Is it Tony Finau?
No, it's not. I got to have some parity. So it's going to be Xander Schauffele. He's just been playing extremely well. I think he's going to be a little angry after that controversy, just hitting the ball extremely well on top events.
Jeff, Slate Approved.
It's going to be Jason Day. Steve Williams didn't come back to caddy to miss cuts. Came back to make some money. I think Jason Day is due for a big bounce back.
Alrighty, excellent stuff as always, golf gurus. Todd Frazier is going to join me after the Tour Junkies weigh in on whether or not Matthew Fitzpatrick is a good play this week at the WGC.
I'm not a believer in Fitzpatrick here. He did finish 20th at the Open, but I think Portrush is a much different golf course than TPC Southwind. I think it's set up much better for his short knock and self kind of game, and that's what we saw. I mean, Fitzpatrick's an accurate player, but he doesn't make a ton of birdies. He's not known as like this high clip birdie maker. He's just kind of known as a grinder, a guy who's going to grind it out. He's going to make par. He does well on really difficult tracks where accuracy's at a premium. And there are just a lot of other guys I would much rather play at $7,700 than Matthew Fitzpatrick. Disagree.
Well, I think the important thing you just said there was on very difficult tracks, which you
It's not a very difficult track, though. You're comparing it to freaking 2017 TPC Southwind where, like, David Hearn and Ben Crane were top players here. Like, this tournament has not attracted big names in the past. Therefore, you got pissant golfers playing it. So they don't put up big numbers. They don't put up great scoring. I think this is going to be a high-scoring, tons of birdies, tons and eagle kind of golf course. You can't say that this is a difficult golf course. It's not for these guys.
See, I think you're totally wrong on that. Just because you're taking the players that have played in this course and you're saying that that's the reason that it's not difficult. But if you look at it year over year, I mentioned it in the course breakdown. 11th toughest, 10th toughest, 15th toughest. There's like 60 courses on tour. This is a tough course.
Welcome back to The Sweat, where we have a very special guest joining us, Todd Frazier of the Mets. Todd, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you. Can't wait.
All right, so as a kid, you won the Little League World Series with your hometown of Toms River. You went to Rutgers for college and now have played for both New York franchises. Has it been nice to have a type of homecoming after spending the beginning of your career in Cincinnati and Chicago?
It's been great. It's a blessing, to be honest with you. For me, I'm only an hour and 25 minutes from home, from the field. I'll tell you a quick story. I went home after we got home from San Francisco the other day. I got in at like 5 in the morning. And I promised my son I'd take him to camp, and I had to get up at 8:15. So it was a tough day, but those days I'll take every day of the week just because the close proximity of it. So for me, been very blessed. Been playing in New York for the last 2 years.
It was a couple of cups of coffee that morning, I'm sure.
I wish I liked coffee. I'm not a big coffee fan. I just went through it. I just said, let's go.
Oh, man. All right. Well, granted, it was only a short time in pinstripes in 2017, but did you notice an immediate difference in terms of playing for the two different New York franchises?
Yeah. It's, the proximity is like 8 miles, whatever it is. There's a lot of energy. When I played for the Yankees, played for the Mets, you could tell basically in New York the difference. You're just understanding that the Yankees, when you play for them, they got the World Series, all the rings and stuff. And you come to New the Mets here, we're fighting our butts off to get one. And the fan bases are pretty much the same. They love each other. They're gonna boo you if you're not doing good, and they're gonna praise you when you're doing well. So it's that basically what have you done for me lately mentality. But I'm very very fortunate to play for both teams, and I love playing for both teams.
Well, after avoiding the IL for most of your MLB career, you did land on the injured list twice last season and missed the start of this season. But since coming back, you played 75 games. So how are you feeling here as we approach the home stretch?
I feel really good. It was just one of those unfortunate things that happened in spring training this year. Little oblique strain. You can't really predict what's going to happen. But for me, 33, I feel, the best I've felt in a long time. And ready to rock here. I know, we got opportunities, but we got to keep winning games and putting our best foot forward.
So we had your teammate Jacob deGrom on earlier in the week. Phenomenal season last year. How much of an advantage is it to have that strong of an ace at the front of the rotation?
It helped the defense out tremendously, knowing that, he's going to have 8 to 10 plus strikeouts a game. He's going to keep the offense on their heels, and for us, we got to put 2 or 3 runs up that game, and eventually we'll have the victory. So, not only him, we got a really good staff here with Thor and Matz and Wheeler and Vargas, who's having a heck of a year, and it's a matter of just putting 2 things together, hitting and pitching, and it's been few and far between this year, but we still have a good 2 months to go and see what can happen.
Exactly. I mean, we asked deGrom this same question, but it's been an up and down season for the Mets. But with how competitive the NL is this season, you're still just 7 games out of a wild card spot. So how focused is this team right now?
Yeah, we're always focused. We come in every day, not worried about what we did yesterday or what we did in the past. Our meetings have been upbeat. Guys are still, trying to, do their jobs. And that's basically it. When you find a team that's doing well, they know their roles. And they understand it that, we don't need you to hit a home run in situations. We need you to get on base, maybe a single here and do the job. But, we're still fired up. We're still ready to rock. It's your job at the end of the day, and you're playing in New York. So the fans will keep you on your toes. If not, you'll be booted out of here quick.
Well, another teammate, Pete Alonso, has quickly made a name for himself this season. What's it been like to watch his emergence as a player?
It's been fantastic. He's such a good kid. We talked about meetings just before, and he's a guy that he speaks up, and you don't really see that too much as a guy coming into his own in a rookie season. He's been spectacular. He won the home run derby, and I couldn't be happier for the guy. He's such a nice dude, and he works hard at his craft, and at a young age, it's very hard to find. And hopefully, at the end of the year, he's coming home with some hard work.
Well, the MLB trade deadline is coming up fast here. You went through it in 2017, moving from the White Sox to the Yankees midseason. Describe what it's like to get traded, and is there kind of a sense of unease in the clubhouse in the days leading up to that deadline?
There, in past years, there has. I remember in Cincinnati when Johnny Gomes got traded. you just talk about it all the time. I kind of knew with the White Sox I was going somewhere. I didn't know where yet. But right now, for us and myself, I haven't really heard anything. And my focus is on producing every day. If you produce, good things will happen. And for me, I've been through it a couple times. I'm not really worried about it. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, so be it. I'm happy to be a Met and happy to try and get the team back in the playoffs.
So how do you think the fact that there's only one deadline day this season, no more August waiver deadline, how do you think that's going to impact the amount of action at the deadline?
I think it's going to be a little crazier, to be honest with you. I mean, there hasn't been many trades. I think a handful maybe. Nothing like really electric, but I like it, to be honest with you. So, I mean, for guys, younger guys especially, don't have nothing else to worry about. You have this 3-4 week span, whatever it is, to figure it out. And, and then the next month, if you want to get somebody on the team, it can't just be, let's get the best guy. No, you got to figure it out now. And that's where strategy comes in and where your branch has to put things together. And hopefully it works out well for both teams.
All right, let's give out some team superlatives here. So you have a pretty good nickname, the Todd Father. But is it the best nickname on the team?
In my opinion, I think it is. I know there's Thor and Grominator and Polar Bear. I like Polar Bear. I like the Flying Squirrel. There's a lot of tough choices. But, the Flying Squirrel has to be up there for Jeff McNeil because, that's very unique. I don't know anybody else with that nickname.
Cantlay kicks it off. He's $9,800. Tim Anderkust has used Justin Rose as his one and done this week. He is 95. Xander's 93. The no-cut specialist, Xander Schauffele. There's a few of those who really excel at these type of formats. Stenson is 91. Kuchar is $9,000. I don't really know what to do with this range. I think that Cantlay and Xander are the two best plays. I'd probably end up going with Xander, but I'm actually even considering starting my lineups just in the $8,000 level and just building a balanced lineup that way.
Certainly plenty of names down there that we haven't talked about. This is a weird range. You have Justin Rose. I mean, I don't know what to say. Obviously, Sunday, if you talked about Jason Day was my big problem. My second biggest problem was Justin Rose, who just gave it all back with a 79, I think, 8 over, just awful. Xander, you said it. He's an incredible driver of the ball. Has a win at a WGC. The price never really, I always feel like it's overpriced, but it's not. He's just an incredibly good player. So what the rest of the range, though, Stenson, Kuchar, I don't have a strong feel. Kind of feels like a dead range overall. I wouldn't be stunned to see me take one above them and a couple guys below it on most of my rosters.
It's strange. Xander has 4 wins in his career, and 3 of them are at no-cut events. It's like Justin Thomas forever would just win no-cut events until he finally broke through and just started winning everything. And the good thing about Justin Thomas, too, is that not only no-cut events, we're back on Bermuda in less than a par 72. Xander can really kind of take advantage of this as well. He won the Tournament of Champions. He won the Tour Championship. He won the WGC, HSBC over in China. That stuff does resonate in my mind a little bit about who I want to take for these sort of events, that there's a certain mindset that I think you need to get yourself in, that you're never really out of it, that other players have a more difficult time wrapping their minds around. Because someone like Brooks, who, and I mean, Feinberg has mentioned this a bunch of times, that when Xander's out of a tournament, he's out of it, and he just might pack it in. But in an event like this, he knows he can go and shoot a 60, and that will keep him motivated the entire time to at least try to go out and attempt to shoot one of those scores, like we saw at the Tournament of Champions earlier this year, when he just wrapped off like a 62 and a -9 to go beat Gary Woodland in the opening event of this year. That I think there is something to this mentality. Maybe I'm putting too much stock in that.
No, I agree with that. Again, it's tough to know each player's thought on something like that, but we have seen it with Xander. He has the ability to turn around. And I will say, even in events, obviously, you can take just last week, he has the ability to just grind back in it. Doesn't mean he's going to win, but I do like that about him. He's a guy that, on the whole, I don't play a ton because, like I said, $200 more for someone like Justin Rose, who I do think he is a better player, but there's no arguing that Xander has some things that you like to see in a week like this.
Alrighty, we're wrapping up this Wednesday edition of The Sweat with one of our most exciting segments. Time for Put Up Your Bukes. Steve Buchanan gives his top picks of the night. And Julian Edlow and James McCool will either agree or attempt to set him straight. So, Steve, your first buke, please, along with your DK point projections.
Yeah, so we're going to go with Brian Dozier here for 16 DK fantasy points. He's batting 6 tonight in the Nationals lineup, which I like a lot because if people are going to be stacking 1 through 5, obviously Dozier is going to be left off of those stacks. So I think you're going to get some pretty good ownership on here. And look, this is somebody who has been destroying left-handed pitching. He's got a 433 WOBA against him, a 273 isolated power. I think he brings some really good value against Kyle Freeland, who is averaging -2 DK fantasy points over his last 5 starts. That should be enough reason to put Dozier in your lineup for tonight. So I absolutely love him in this spot, and I think he's going to come in at really low ownership as well.
All right, so Dozier, what do we think about this one, Julian? The guy's averaging 6.4 fantasy points per game.
Yeah, he's not having a great year. I don't love Dozier that much overall, but you have to like the spot. He's below 4K. He's hitting 6th, and I just like any righty that is capable of hitting a home run going against Kyle Freeland because he's just been so bad lately. But this has put up your bukes, and I have to argue with Steve, so I'll say that he hits a solo home run for 14 DK points and doesn't get the projection because I like arguing with Steve.
Obviously, it's one of Julian's favorite pastimes. James, Julian doesn't like Dozier as a whole, but thinks he's in a smash spot tonight. Do you agree?
I think the Nationals are in a good spot, but I don't necessarily like Brian Dozier that much because the Nationals aren't really a team that, like, they can hit home runs, but when have they ever worked out as chalk, especially against somebody like Kyle Freeland, who's eliciting pretty soft contact right now and has a lower expected home run rate, even though his home run rate has been high. And Brian Dozier is one of the weakest power hitters on this team. I don't think he's going to hit a home run. And if he doesn't hit a home run, he's not getting 16 fantasy points. What's he going to do? Steal second and third and then get home? He's not doing that. So I think 16 is just way too high. Like, we were talking like 8 points, maybe 10 points, maybe, but Steve's just wrong.
And actually, the start of that game has been delayed, so definitely going to want to.
That's fine. They're trying to, limit the damage on Freeland as much as they can.
Okay, fair enough. Steve, let's get your second buke here.
Yeah, so we're going to go with Adam Frazier here for 14 DK fantasy points. I'm just going to tell you idiots one thing. You can actually get to this number without hitting a home run. So don't give me this, he's not going to hit a home run BS. Like, it's possible, you idiots. It's been done before. So, Frazier. So, Wainwright, his biggest thing is that he can't get out left-handed bats. His numbers are just so poor against him. And now we have Frazier hitting in the leadoff spot. He's going to get at least a couple of at-bats against Wainwright. And if you look at all the extra base hits that he's had on the season, 15 of them have come at home against right-handed pitching. So pretty much half of his production, his good production, has come at PNC Park against righties. I don't know how you don't like Frazier or really any of the Pirates lefties bats on this slate here tonight. Wainwright is in a really bad spot here, so I think Frazier at the top of the lineup, cheap too as well, is in a really good spot.
James, how do you feel about Adam Frazier for 14 DK fantasy points?
I think that Adam Frazier is actually in a pretty good spot here. PNC Park has been a spot where you can take left-handed hitters this season. They've actually been above expected fantasy points, but the fact of the matter is that Adam Frazier isn't that good of a hitter. He's really good against righties, and Adam Wainwright does have his problems against lefties, but saying that he can't get them out is just a straight-up lie. I think that you can probably strike out Adam Frazier a couple times or get a couple ground balls because Adam Wainwright doesn't have that high of a fly ball rate as it is. So Adam Frazier is going to have to hit, 3 ground balls to get up to 14 fantasy points, and he has to score every single time that he hits a ground ball. I just don't see it happen.
Jules, how do you feel about Frazier?
Yeah, don't love him that much. Mostly for what James said. I mean, Wainwright, not the best pitcher against lefties, sure, but Frazier is only 3 for 15 in Wainwright in his career, so obviously Wainwright has been able to deal with him fine in the past. Laughing at stats, Steve? I actually looked something up. You should be impressed.
That's what I was laughing at.
Yeah, and I only brought one set of numbers to this segment because the rest is just gut feeling that Steve will be wrong.
Okay, all right. Well, unfortunately, we don't have time for your third buke, Steve, so we're going to have to jump to slate-approved picks. So, Steven, who's your lock for tonight?
Yeah, it's 100% going to be Patrick Corbin. You do not want to fade him against a Rockies team who cannot hit anything, especially on the road.
Julian, who's your lock for tonight's slate?
I'm just going to keep trolling Bukes because the Marlins are in such a good spot tonight and tell you that Zach Gallen is going to throw a gem against the White Sox.
Steve, do you want to bet him a breakfast sandwich about that?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll bet 5. He's such an idiot.
James, your slate-approved pick, please.
Yeah, it's going to be Aaron Judge. Jake Odorizzi has one of the highest expected home run rates on the slate for a pitcher and is just getting destroyed by right-handed hitters. So it's going to be Aaron Judge for me.
All right, excellent work, you guys. Appreciate it. As always, that's going to do it for the sweat. Thank you to my co-host. Just kidding, no co-host tonight, just me, Jessie Coffield. But this show will be back tomorrow at 6. Allegedly, I will have a co-host, so be sure to tune in. DK Live app, of course, you should download that. You can watch us on there. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all the fun places. Tomorrow at 6, more DFS and betting advice going to be coming your way for 60 minutes. So we'll see you tomorrow at 6.